Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we have the Jumper EZBook X4. This time it's running the new Gemni Lake N4100 CPU. It's got 4GB of RAM, which is actually pretty low this time, and that's kind of unfortunate, but we're going to see how this performs. And the usual stuff of a 1080p panel. This time it's a TN panel, not an IPS, but on the bright side it is a brighter display. And other than the specs, we actually have a new addition, and that would be a backlit keyboard, which we're going to be taking a look at in just a bit. So let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at the I/O. First, we got a micro SD card slot, a USB 3.0 port, a headset jack, as well as the AC port. And then moving along to the left side, we get yet another 3.0 port, a micro HDMI port, and the charging LED indicator. And finally, on the bottom right under here, we can find the 128GB bWin M.2 SATA SSD. Now, if this is your first time checking out an EZBook laptop, well, you can see that the whole body is made out of aluminum. As you can see here, it is very nicely machined, barely in flex, so the build quality overall is pretty nice, at least in the hand. While the body is aluminum, the inside frame is made out of plastic to hold all the components and stop them from shorting out. Right over here we have the main board where we can find the N4100 Gemni CPU. We're going to see how well it does and compare to other laptops later on. Once again, the SSD is right over here, and you can expand it to a larger one, of course. You just got to do some modification to make it fit. We get the 4 gigs of RAM, which again is pretty low for this kind of spec. And then we have the Intel Wi-Fi/Bluetooth chip right over here. Yes, dual band AC Wi-Fi with a 7.6 volt 4800 milliamp hour battery. Very straightforward. We're going to see how the battery does. But if you want to improve the thermal performance, you can actually add a pad right over here where the chip is, so you can transfer some of the heat over to the back plate right over here. So that's an option. Now, if you want to open up the laptop with one hand, you just got to do one of those. You just got to give it a little wiggle, and then it will open up just like so. Now inside, once again, we got the webcam, the dual microphone array right over here. There's actually no branding on the inside, so turning it on, we have the Jumper logo that comes up like so. And what we have here is a 14-inch 1080p panel. It's not IPS, it's TN, and as you can see, the viewing angles aren't the best, which is to be expected, but at least unlike most IPS panels on these kind of laptops, it is actually much more brighter, and the panel doesn't look all that bad when looked at head on. It would only affect you if you're watching from the sides. And as you can see, the viewing angles are also not too bad from the sides as well. It's just when you look it up from the top or bottom, which is not often unless someone is standing right behind you and they want to see what you're looking at, then they can not have a great experience. So yeah, as you can see, the panel looks really good, but really what's more important is the input of the laptop. So let's go ahead and talk about the keyboard and the touchpad, starting off with the keyboard itself. So the keyboard here, as we have mentioned before, it is backlit. It is one of the first laptops to be backlit from Jumper. All you have to do is hold the F key and hit the spacebar once for the low brightness and then twice for the maximum brightness, and once more to turn it off. And now if we go ahead and turn off the lights, here's what the keyboard looks like. When the lights are off, these kind of keys are really not that visible. So let's go ahead and turn on the keyboard, low brightness, and then higher brightness. And for the most part, the keys are very well lit, and overall you can see the keys pretty easily. Of course, the edges here are not perfectly lit, but you can still see the keys. And once again, this is the first Jumper EZBook laptop that has a backlit keyboard, so not bad at all. Now the touchpad on the other hand isn't really all that great, and it seems like it is a consistent issue that comes up with some Jumper models. For example, my favorite Jumper laptop was the EZBook 3 Pro, and that was mainly because it has an IPS display, it was very small, but mainly it had a really good touchpad. The touchpad was very responsive when it comes to usage. This one is also responsive when you try to move it, but when you try to do anything with precise movements, your mouse will not move. And as you can see here with the zoomed in image, you can see that it jitters, and sometimes it doesn't even move at all. Even though it has Windows 10 precision drivers, it's not a fantastic touchpad. For me, that's a big blow, even though we have a beautiful display here that is actually pretty bright compared to other models. Yes, you can always use an external mouse, but with that said, let's go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and take a look at the performance, starting off with the SSD. So what we have here is a bWin branded SSD, and I gotta say these are some really good performance numbers, especially for the read, considering this is a SATA drive. And out of the box, you'll get about 100GB of free storage. That said, I have reinstalled Windows 10 on this laptop, just for good measures to get the cleanest performance out of this laptop. And if you would like a clean dedicated video on how to reinstall Windows 10 on laptops or pretty much any device, then let me know in the comment section below. Now here's a quick look at the Wi-Fi performance. So when the laptop is nearby the router in the same room, you can expect these kind of results. Now I usually get about 178 megabits per second, and on this laptop we are getting 125 megabits per second, while the upload speed is still the same. But now if we go ahead and move along 50 feet away with two walls in the way, we can expect these kind of results. So The download speed has taken a big hit. It's still good enough speed. Of course, it's not the highest you can get. But again, for the price point, not too bad. At least we have some pretty good Wi-Fi connection. And finally, here is the Cinebench score. We are getting 164 CB. At one point, I did get 179, and I got 12.72 FPS for the OpenGL. And that's about it for the boring benchmarks. Let's go ahead and take a look at the gaming performance and see if this thing is any good for gaming. Moving along to the gaming performance, as you can see, the performance is pretty bad. We are running all the way to low settings and 4x3, and it seems like the keyboard has glitched up for some reason. Every time I click the A button, something's glitched. So the keyboard here is absolutely not working. I have no idea. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in an external keyboard and show you the performance, except I need a... Alright, so we got ourselves a keyboard and a mouse externally, and it seems like the issue has gone away. Now we are running Counter-Strike Source, and we are at 720p with the lowest settings. And of course, the performance is going to be much better. Now, since we are on a custom map, we can see that the performance has dropped quite a bit, but it is still much more playable than it is on Counter-Strike Global Offensive. As you can see, there's a lot going on, multiple players, about 36 right now on the server. But overall, if you really want to push this laptop, you could, and you could play some CS Source. Or 1.6, whatever works for you. Now, I've already tested Rocket League on this laptop, and again, the performance is pretty terrible. It's just unplayable at all. So to sum it all up, if you want to play games on this laptop, play older games like Counter-Strike Source 1.6. Either that, or play some 2D fighters, or some optimized games like Grid. They're going to run much better on this laptop, but really anything new on this laptop, and it will suffer. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the battery life. So what you can expect is around 4 hours of video playback at 1080p with full brightness, which is pretty good. I've seen better, but it is still a reasonable number. While the charging times on the other hand are around 2.5 to 3 hours, the usual for these type of laptops. And yes, it can handle 4K video playback on YouTube without any problems whatsoever. Everything is nice and smooth, and overall it's pretty flawless. And lastly, the audio quality on this laptop isn't really all that bad, but it will definitely get you by, and overall the quality is pretty decent for what it is. So here, take a listen. Alright guys, so the conclusion. What do I think about this laptop? Should you get it? Is it worth it? If not, what are the alternatives? Well, let me tell you. Well, the display here is pretty nice and vivid, it's very bright, and it does have its advantages over IPS. The backlight function does work, and it's overall pretty good. The glitching issue we had when we were playing Counter-Strike, that might have been a software issue since it does go away when I restart the laptop, so that might have been a result of me reinstalling Windows. I guess we'll find out later. That said, the touchpad here is the main flaw of this laptop. It is not very responsive, and I shouldn't say responsive, it is responsive. It just does not register when you do very fine movements like these, trying to aim your cursor at the proper icon. So that is a bummer. The speakers here are pretty okay. They're neither bad or good, and overall the battery life is pretty decent. But with that said, the price point here is about $280. It's on sale, and even then I wouldn't recommend it, especially with the touchpad issue. I might have recommended it if the touchpad wasn't as bad. Maybe I got a faulty unit, who knows? But unfortunately, I won't recommend this laptop even though it had some really nice SD performance. Speaking of performance, the performance that I saw from this thing when gaming, it really didn't perform better than this guy right here, which if you want to see the video about it, I'll leave a link for it in the description below. This is the EZBook 3 Pro, the previous model. It had 6GB of RAM and the previous generation of Apollo Lake processors, and it had much better performance out of the box. So again, I recommend checking out the video for this thing. That said, there's another laptop that I'm reviewing right now, which is the Teclast F7, and so far it might have been a better laptop than the EZBook X4. Again, the touchpad here, I don't think is good enough to recommend. I will leave a link for everything in the description below, so stay tuned for the F7 review, stay tuned for my top 3 budget laptop review video, and yeah guys, that is actually pretty much it for this video, so thank you all for watching. I'm going to go to sleep. Hope you have enjoyed this video, found it helpful. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care everyone.